Stargirl by Jerry Spinelli. To Eileen, my Stargirl, and to Lauren Easley, who taught us that even as we are becoming, and to Sunny List. Chapter 1 Porcupine Necktie. When I was little, my Uncle Pete had a necktie with a porcupine painted on it. I thought a necktie was just about the neatest thing in the world. Uncle Pete would stand patiently before me while I ran my fingers over the silky surface, half expecting to be stuck by one of the quills. Once he let me wear it, I kept looking for one on my own, but I could never find one. I was 12 when we moved from Pennsylvania to Arizona. When Uncle Pete came to say goodbye, he was wearing the tie. I thought he did so to give it one last look at it, and I was grateful. But then, with a dramatic flourish, he wiped off the tie and draped it around my neck. "It's yours," he said, going away present. I loved that porcupine tie so much, I decided to start a collection. 2 years after we settled in Arizona, the number of ties in my collection was still one. Where do you find a porcupine necktie in Mika, Arizona, or anywhere else for that matter? On my 14th birthday, I read about myself in the local newspaper. The family section ran a regular feature about kids on their birthdays, and my mother had called in some info. The last sentence read, "As a hobby, Leo Borlaug collects porcupine neckties." Several days later, coming home from school, I found an aged tie with yellow ribbon. The tag said, "Happy birthday." I opened the package. It was a porcupine necktie. Two porcupines were tossing darts with their quills, while a third was picking its teeth. I inspected the box, the tag, the paper. Nowhere could I find the giver's name. I asked my parents. I asked my friends. I called my Uncle Pete. Everyone denied knowing anything about it. At the time, I simply considered the episode a mystery. It did not occur to me that I was being watched. We were all being watched. "Do you see her?" That was the thing Kevin said to me on the first day of school, 11th grade. We were waiting for the bell to ring. "See who?" I said. "Huh!" He craned his neck, scanning the mob. He had witnessed something remarkable. It showed on his face. He grinned, still scanning. "You'll know." There were hundreds of us, milling about, calling names, pointing to summer-tanned faces we hadn't seen since June. Our interest in each other was never keener than during the 15 minutes before the first bell of the first day. I punched his arm. "Who?" The bell rang. We poured inside. I heard it again in homeroom, a whispered voice behind me as we said the Pledge of Alliance. "You see her?" I heard it in the hallways. I heard it in English and geometry. "Did you see her?" We could be a new student, a spectacular blonde from California, or from back east, where many of us came from, or one of those summer makeovers, someone who leaves in June looking like a little girl and returns in September as a full-bodied woman. A 10-week miracle. And then in earth science I heard a name, Stargirl. I turned to the senior slouching behind me. "Stargirl?" I said. "What kind of name is that?" "That's it, Stargirl Caraway," she said in homeroom. "Stargirl?" "Yeah." And then I saw her, at lunch. She wore an off-white dress, so long it covered her shoes. It had ruffles around the neck and cuffs, and looked like it could have been her great-grandma's wedding gown. Her hair was the color of sand. It fell to her shoulders. Something was strapped across her back, but it wasn't a book bag. At first, I thought it was a miniature guitar. I found later it was a ukulele. She did not carry a lunch tray. She did carry a large canvas bag with a life-size sunflower painted on it. The lunchroom was dead silent as she walked by. She stopped at an empty table, laid down her bag, slung the instrument strap over her chair, and sat down. She pulled a sandwich from the bag and started to eat. Half the lunchroom kept staring, half started buzzing. Kevin was grinning. "What did I tell you?" I nodded. "She's in 10th grade," he said. "I hear she's been homeschooled till now." "That explains it," I said. Her back was to us, so I couldn't see her face. No one sat with her, but the tables next to hers, kids were cramming to a seat. She didn't seem to notice. She seemed a man ruined in a sea of staring, buzzing faces. Kevin was grinning again. "You thinking what I'm thinking?" he said. I grinned back. I nodded. Hot Seat! Hot Seat was our in-school TV show. We had started in the year before. I was the producer/director. Kevin was on-camera host. Each month he interviewed a student. So far most of them have been honor students type athletes, model citizens, noteworthy in the usual ways but not especially interesting. Suddenly Kevin's eyes boggled. The girl was picking up her ukulele, and now she was strumming it. And now she was singing, strumming away, bobbing her head and shoulders, singing. I'm looking over a four-leaf clover that I overlooked before. Stone silence all around. Then came the sound of a single person clapping. I looked. It was the lunch line cashier. And now the girl was standing, slinging her bag over one shoulder and marching among the tables, strumming and singing and strutting and twirling. Her head swung, eyes followed, her mouth hung open. Disbelief, when she came by our table, I got my first good look at her face. She wasn't gorgeous, but wasn't ugly. A sprinkle of freckles crossed the bridge of her nose. Mostly she looked like 100 other girls in school, except for two things. She wore no makeup and her eyes were the biggest I had ever seen, like deer's eyes caught in headlights. She twirled as she went past, her flirting skirt brushing my pant leg, and then she marched out of the lunchroom. From among the tables came three slow claps. Someone whistled, someone yelped. Kevin and I gawked at each other. Kevin held up his hands and framed a marquee in his hair. Hot seat, coming attraction, Stargirl. I slapped the table. Yes! We slapped hands. When we got to school the next day, Hillary Kimball was holding court at the door. She's not real, Hillary said. She was sneering. She's an actress. It's a scam. Someone called out, "Who's scamming us?" The administration, the principal, who else? Who cares? Hillary wagged her head at the absurdity of the question. A hand flashed in the air. Why? School spirit, she spat back. They thinking this place was too dead last year. They planned some nutcase in with the students. Like they planned narcs in schools. Someone else shouted. Hillary glared at the speaker and continued. Some nutcase who stirs things up. Then maybe all the little students will go to a game once in a while or join a club. Instead of making out the library, chimed another voice. And everybody laughed at the bell rang and we went in. Hillary Kimball's theory spread throughout the school and was widely accepted. You think Hillary's right? Kevin asked me. Is Stargirl's a plant? I snickered. Listen to yourself. He spread his arms. What? This is Mika Area High School. I remind him. It's not a CIA operation. Maybe not, he said. But I hope Hillary's right. Why will you hope that? If she's not real we can't have her on hot seat. Kevin wagged his head and grinned. As usual, Mr. Director, you failed to see the whole picture. We could use the show to expose her, can't you see it? He did the marquee thing with his hand. Hotsy uncovers, factually hoax. I stared at him. You want her to be a fake, don't you? He grinned ear to ear. Absolutely, our ratings will go sky high. I had to admit, the more I saw of her, the easier it was to believe she was a plant. A joke. Anything but real. On that second day, she wore bright red baggy shorts with a bib and shoulder straps. Overall shorts. Her sandy hair was pulled back into twin plaited pigtails, each tied with a bright red ribbon. A rouge smudge appled each cheek, and she had even dabbed some oversized freckles on her face. She looked like Haiti or Bo Beep. At lunch, she was alone again at her table. As before, when she finished eating, she took up her ukulele, but this time she didn't play. She got up and started walking among the tables. She stared at us. She stared at one face, then another and another. The kind of bored, I'm looking at you stare you almost never get from people, especially strangers. She appeared to be looking for someone, and the whole lunchroom had become very uncomfortable. As she approached our table, I thought, what if she's looking in for me? This thought terrified me, so I turned from her. I looked at Kevin. I watched him grin goofily at her. He wiggled his fingers at her and whispered, "Hi, Stigers." I didn't hear an answer. I was intensely aware of her passing behind my chair. She stopped 2 tables away. She was smiling at a pudding body senior named Alan Perko. The lunchroom was dead silent. She started strumming the uke and singing it was "Happy Birthday." When she came to his name, she didn't sing just his first name, but his full name. "Happy birthday, Dean Alan Fairclough." Alan Fairclough's face turned red as Bo Peep's pigtails ribbons. There was a flurry of whistles and shoots, more for Alan Fairclough's sake, I think, than hers. As Stargirl marched out, I could see Hilary Kimball across the lunchroom, rising from her seat, pointing, saying something I could not hear. "I'll tell you one thing," Kevin said as we joined the mob in the hallways. "She better be fake." I asked him what he meant. "I mean, if she's real, she's in a big trouble. How long do you think somebody who's really like that is going to last around here?" Good question. Mika Area High School, Mass was not exactly a hotbed of nonconformity. There were individuals, variants here and there, of course, but within pretty narrow limits. We all wore the same clothes, talked the same way, ate the same food, listened to the same music. Even our dorks and nerds had a MAHS stamp on them. If we happened to somehow distinguish ourselves, we quickly snapped back into place. Like rubber bands. Kevin was right. It was unthinkable that Stargirl could survive, or at least survive unchanged, among us. But it was also clear that Hilary Kimball was at least half right. This person calling herself Stargirl may or may not have been a faculty plant or school spirit. But whatever she was not real. She couldn't be. Several times in those early weeks of September, she showed up in something outrageous. A 1920s flapper dress, an Indian buckskin, a kimono. One day she wore a denim miniskirt with green stockings, and crawling up one leg was a parade of enamel ladybug and butterfly pins. Normal, for here were long, flooring, brushing, pioneer dresses and skirts. Every few days in the lunchroom she serenaded someone new with happy birthday. I was glad to my pair was in the summer. In the hallways she said hello to perfect strangers. The seniors couldn't believe it. They had ever seen a 10th grade so bold. In class she was always flapping her hands in the air, asking the questions. Though the question always had nothing to do with the subject. One day she asked a question about trolls in US history class. She made up a song about isosceles triangles. She sang it to her plane geometry class. It was called "Three Sides Have I, but Only Two Are Equal." She joined the cross country team. Our home meets were held on the Mika Country Club golf course. Red flags showed the runners the way to go in her first meet. Out in the middle of the course, she turned left when everyone else turned right. They waited for her at the finish line. She never showed up. She was dismissed from the team. One day a girl screamed in the hallways. She had seen a tiny brown face pop from Stargirl's sunflower canvas bag. It was her pet rat. It rode to school in the bag every day. One morning we had a rare rainfall. It came during her gym class. The teacher told everybody to come in. On the way to the next class, they looked out the window. Stargirl was still outside, in the rain, dancing. We wanted to find her to wrap her up, as we did each other, but we could not see to guess past. Weird and strange and goofy. Her waist knocked off us balance. A single word seemed to move in the cloudless sky over the school. Huh? Everything she did seemed to echo Hillary Kimball. She's not real. She's not real. And each night in bed, I thought of her as the moon came through my window. I have lowered my shade to make it darker and easier to sleep, but I never did. In that moonlight hour, I acquired a sense of the otherness in things. I liked the feeling the moonlight gave me, as if it wasn't the opposite of the day, but its underside, its private side, when the fabulous poured on my snow-white sheet, like some dark cat coming from the desert. It was during one of these night moon times that it came to me that Hillary Kimball was wrong. Stargirl was real. Chapter 3. We fought daily, Kevin and I. My main job as producer was to recruit people for the hot seat. After I signed someone up, Kevin began researching the person, getting his question ready. Every day he asked me, "Did you sign her up?" Every day I answered no. He got frustrated. "What do you mean no? Do you want to sign her up?" I told him I wasn't sure. His eyes bugged out. "Not sure? How can you not be sure? We high-fived in the lunchroom weeks ago. We were thinking Stargirl miniseries even. This is a hot seat from heaven." I shrugged. That was then. Now I'm not sure. He looked at me like I had 3 years. "What's there to be not sure about?" I shrugged. "Well then," he said, "I'll sign her up." He walked away. "You have to find another director then," I said. He stopped. I could almost see the steam rising from his shoulders. He turned, pointed. "Leo, you can be a real jerk sometimes." He walked off. It was uncomfortable. Kevin Kinlan and I usually agreed on everything, and we had been best friends since arriving in Arizona. The same week years before, we both thought the prickly pear cactus looked like ping pong paddles with whiskers, and the saguaros looked like dinosaur mittens. We both loved strawberry banana smoothies. We both wanted to go into television. Kevin often said he wanted to be a sleazy talk show host, and he wasn't kidding. I wanted to be a sports announcer on news anchor. We convinced Hansi together and convinced the faculty to let us do it. It was an instant hit. It quickly became the most popular thing in school. So why was I baking? I didn't know. I had some vague feelings, but the only one I could identify was a warning. Leave her alone. In time, Hillary's hypothesis, so called by Kevin, about Starker's origins gave way to other theories. She was trying to get herself discovered for the movies. She was sniffing fumes. She was homeschooling gone amok. She was an alien. The rat she brought to school was only the tip of the iceberg. She had hundreds of them at home, someone as big as cats. She lived in a ghost town in the desert. She lived in a bus. Her parents were circus acrobats. Her parents were witches. Her parents were brain-dead vegetables in a hospital in Yuma. We watched her sit down in class and pull from her canvas bag a blue and yellow ruffled curtain that she draped over 3 sides of her desk. We saw her set out 3-inch clear glass vase and drop into a white and yellow daisy. She did and undid this in every class she attended, 6 times a day. Only on Monday mornings was the daisy fresh. By last period the petals were drooping. By Wednesday the petals began to fall, the stem to sag. By Friday the flower hung down over the rim of the waterless vase, its dead stump of a head shedding the yellow dust. In the pencil group we joined her as she sang happy birthday to us in the lunchroom. We heard her greet us in the hallways and classrooms, and we wondered how she knew our names and our birthdays. Her cotton headlights eyes gave her a look of perpetual astonishment, so that we found ourselves turning and looking back over our shoulders, wondering what we were missing. She laughed when there was no joke, she danced when there was no music. She had no friends, yet she was the friendliest person in the school. In her answers in class she often spoke of seahorses and stars, but she did not know what football was. She did there was no television in her house. She was elusive. She was today. She was tomorrow. She was the faintest scent of a cactus flower, the flitting shadow of an elf hour. We did not know what to make of her. In our minds we tried to pin her to a corkboard like a butterfly, but the pin merely went through, and away she flew. Kevin wasn't the only one. Other kids pestered me. Put her on the hot seat. I lied. I said she was only a 10th grade and you had to be at least a junior to be on hot seat. Meanwhile, I kept my distance. I observed her as she was a bird in an aviary. One day I turned a corner and there she was, coming right at me, long skirt softly rustling, looking straight at me, surrounding me with those eyes. I turned and trotted off the other way, seating myself in the next class. I felt warm, shaken. I wondered if my foolishness showed. Was I myself becoming goofy? The feeling I had saw her around the corner had been something like panic. The one day after school I followed her. I kept at a safe distance, since she was known to not take a bus. I expected the walk to be short. It wasn't. We trekked all over Mika, past hundreds of grassless stone and cactus, front yards through the Tudorized shopping center, skirting the electronics business park around which the city had been invented a mere 15 years ago. At one point she pulled a piece of paper from her bag. She consulted it. She seemed to be reading house numbers as she walked along. Abruptly she turned up a driveway, went to the front door, and left something in the mailbox. I waited for her to move off. I looked around. No one on the street. I went to the mailbox, put out a homemade card, opened it. Each tall letter was a different painted color. The card said congratulations. It was unsigned. I resumed following her. Cars pulled into driveways. It was dinner time. My parents would be wondering. She took the rat from the bag and put it on her shoulder. Right in there, the rat faced backward, its tiny triangular face peeping out of her sand-colored hair. I could not see its beady black eyes, but I guessed it was looking at me. I fancied it was telling her what I saw. I fell farther back. Shadows crossed the streets. We passed the car wash and the bike shop. We passed the country club golf course, the biggest spread of green grass until the next golf course in the next town. We passed the welcome to Micah sign. We were walking westward. There was us at the highway, and the desert and the sun blazing above Maricopa Mountains. I wished I had my sunglasses. After a while she veered from the highway. I hesitated and followed. She was walking directly into the setting sun, now a great orange perch atop the mountain crest. For a minute the mountains were the same dusky lavender as her sand skimming skirt. With every step the silence grew. as did the sense that she knew, had known all along, that she was being followed, or more, that she was leading me. She never looked back. She strummed her ukulele. She sang. I could no longer see the thread. I imagined it was those in the curtain of her skirt. I imagined it was singing along. The sun lay down behind the mountains. Where was she going? In the gathering dusk, the saguaros flung shadow of giants across the pebbled dirt. The air was cool on my face. The desert smelled of apples. I heard something. A coyote? I thought of rattlesnakes and scorpions. I stopped. I watched her walk on. I stiffed an impulse to call after her, to warn her. Of what? I turned and walked, then ran back to the highway. At Mika Area High School, Hillary Kimball was famous for three things: her mouth, the hoax, and Wayne Parr. Her mouth spoke for itself, most often to complain. The episode that became known as Hillary's hoax took place in her sophomore year, when she tried out for cheerleading. Her face and her and figure were tight enough, and she surely had the mouth. She made the squad easily, and then she stunned everyone by turning it down. She said she just wanted to prove that she could do it. She said she had no intention of jammering and bouncing in front of empty bleachers, which was usually the case, and anyway she hated sports. As for Wayne Parr, he was her boyfriend. Mouth-wise, he was the opposite. He seldom opened his. He didn't have to. All he had to do was appear. That was his job, appear. By both girls' and boys' standards, Wayne Parr was gorgeous, but he was more or less than that. In terms of achievements, Wayne Parr seemed to be nobody. He played of no sports team, joined no organizations, won no awards, earned no A's. He was elected to nothing, honored for nothing, and yet, though I did not realize this until years later, he was Grand Marshal of our daily parade. We did not take up in the morning and ask ourselves, how will Wayne Parr work today? Or how will Wayne Parr act today? At least not consciously, but on some level below awareness, that is exactly what we did. Wayne Parr did not go to football and basketball games, and by any large, neither did we. Wayne Parr did not ask questions in class, get worked over teachers at prep rallies, neither did we. Wayne Parr did not much care, neither did we. Did Parr create us, or was he simply a reflection of us? I didn't know. I knew only that if you peeled off one by one all the layers of the student body, you would have found at the core not the spirit of the school, but Wayne Parr. That's why in our sophomore year I recruited Parr for the hot seat. Kevin was surprised. Why him? Kevin said. What had he ever done? What could I say? That Parr was a worthy subject precisely because he did nothing, because he was so monumentally good at doing things. I had only a vague insight, not the words, just shrugged. The highlights of the hot seat came when Kevin asked Parr who was his hero, his role model. It was one of Kevin's standard questions. Parr answered, GQ. In the control room I did a double take. Was the sound working right? GQ? Kevin repeated dumbly. Gentleman's Quarterly? The magazine? Parr did not look at Kevin, he looked straight at the camera. He nodded smugly. He went on to say he wanted to become a male model. His ultimate ambition was to be on camera, the cover of JQ. And right there he posed for the camera. He had a disdainful model look down pat, and suddenly I could see it. The jaw square at the corner of cover, chiseled cheeks, the perfect teeth on her. That, as I say, took place toward the end of the sophomore year. I thought then that Wayne Parr would always reign as our Grand Marshal. How I could have known that he would soon be challenged to be Freckle-Nosed homeschooler. The call came from Kevin on a Friday night. He was at the football game. "Quick, hurry, drop whatever you're doing now." Kevin was on the few one who went to games. The schools kept threatening to drop football because of low attendance. They said ticket receipts were barely enough to pay for electricity to light the field. But Kevin was screaming on the phone. I jumped in my family pickup and raced to the stadium. I bolted from the truck. Kevin was at the gate, windmilling his arm. "Hurry!" I threw the $2 admission at the ticket window, and we raced to the field. "See better up here," she said, yanking me into the stands. It was at half time, and the band was on the field, all 14 of them. Among the students, it was known as the world's smallest standing band. There weren't enough of them, so formed recognized letters of shapes, except for the capital I. So they didn't march much at half times of games. They mostly stood in 2 rows, or 7 each, plus the student's conductor, no majorettes, no color guard, no flag and rifle girls. Except this night. This night Stargirl Caraway was on the field with them. As they played Rudy in the place, she pranced around the grass in her bare feet and long lemon yellow dress. She roamed from the goalpost to goalpost. She swirled like a dust devil. She marched stiffly like a wooden soldier. She tauted an imaginary flute. She pogoed into the air and knocked her bare heels together. The cheerleaders gaped from the sidelines. A few people in the stands whistled. The rest, the barely outnumbered the band, sat there in "What is this?" on their faces. The band stopped playing and marched off the field. Stargirl stayed. She was twirling around the 40-yard line when the player returned. They did a minute warm-up exercises. She joined in, jumping jacks, belly wumps. The teams lined up for a second half kickoff. The ball perched off the kicking tee. She was still in the field. The referee blew his whistle, pointed to her. He flapped his hand for her to go away. Instead, she dashed for the ball. She plucked it off the tee and danced with it, spinning and hugging it, and hoisting it into the air. The players looked at their coaches. The coaches looked at their officials. The officials blew their whistles and began covering on her. The sole policeman on duty headed on the field. She punted the ball over the visiting team's bench and ran over the field and out of the stadium. Everyone cheered: the spectators, the cheerleaders, the band, the players, the officials, the parents running the hot dog stand, the policemen, me. We whistled and stamped our feet on the aluminum bleachers. The cheerleaders stared up in delight, surprised. For the first time, they were hearing something come back from the stands. They did cartwheels and backflips and even a three-tier pyramid. Old-timers, as as old as timers gone as city as young as Mika, said they had never heard such a racket. For the next home game, more than 1,000 people showed up. Everyone but Wayne Parr and Hillary Kimball. There was a line at the ticket window. The refreshment stand ran out of dogs. A second policeman was called in. The cheerleaders were in their glory. They screamed up the bleachers, "Give me an E!" The bleachers screamed back, "E!" We are the electrons in honor for the town electronics heritage. The cheerleaders ran through all their routines. Before the first quarter was over, the band was loud and peppy. The football team was even scored a touchdown. The stands' heads kept swinging to the edges of the field, to entrance so the streamlamp lightened darkness. Behind the stadium, the sense of expectation grew as the first half came to a close. The band marched smartly onto the field. Even they were looking around. The musicians did the program. They even formed a small loop-sided circle. They seemed to linger on the field, drawing out their notes, waiting. Finally, reluctantly, they marched to the sideline. The players returned. They kept glancing around as they did their warm-ups. When the referee raised his arm and blew his whistle for the second half to begin, a sense of disappointment fell over the stadium. The cheerleader should sag. She wasn't coming. On the following Monday, We got shocked in the lunchroom, bleached blonde with a beautiful Mallory Stillwell, captain of the cheerleaders, was sitting with Stargirl. She sat with her, ate with her, talked with her, walked out with her. By sixth period, the whole school knew Stargirl had been invented to become a cheerleader and had said yes. People in Phoenix must have heard us buzzing. Would she wear the usual skirt and sweater like everyone else? Would she do the usual cheers? Did all the cheerleaders want this, or was it just the captain's idea? Were they jealous? Cheerleading practice drew a crowd. At least 100 of us stood by the parking lot that day, watching her learn the cheers, watching her jump around the long pioneer dress. She spent 2 weeks practicing. Halfway through the second week she wore her uniform, green trimmed white v-neck cotton sweater, short green and white pleated skirt. She looked just like the rest of them. Still, to us she was not truly a cheerleader, but Stargirl, dressed like one. She continued to strum her ukulele and sing happy birthday to people. She still wore long skirts on non-game days and made a home of her school desk. When Halloween arrived, everyone in her homeroom found a candy pumpkin on his or her desk. No one had to ask who did it. By then, most of us had decided that we liked having her around. We found ourselves looking forward to coming to school, to seeing what bizarre antics she be up to. She gave us something to talk about. She was entertaining at the same time we held back, because she was different. Different. We had no one to compare her to, no one to measure her against. She was unknown territory, unsafe. We were afraid to get too close. Also, I think we were all waiting to see the outcome of an event that loomed larger and larger with every passing day. The next birthday upcoming was Hillary Kimball.